Hi, I'm Victor Agreda, Jr., Editor-in-Chief of the Unofficial Apple Weblog, and I'm here with MacTech Magazine and TUAW doing interviews with developers at WWDC 2011. And right now I'm joined by Joe Pezzillo.
Yes,
right?
Thank you.
Push.io?
Push.io.
Okay, and so tell me about who you are and what you guys do.
Sure, thanks. So Push.io is a 2-year-old company. We were in Boulder, Colorado. We started originally with the idea that we were going to build picks and shovels for the mobile gold rush, for the whole iPhone gold rush and revolution. And along the way, what we've kind of discovered is that we feel like everyone's going to end up having an app, in the sense that what we saw happen in the web space over the last 10 or 15 years, we went from a relatively small number of .coms to now, I don't know, 85 million or something like that is the number I read as the current. We think the same is going to happen with apps, so that where we're at today with whatever 425 to 50,000 apps is still a drop in the bucket compared to where we're going to be in a decade. So one of the things that we're doing, we acquired TapLinks from developed by Brent Simmons, and we're going to use that as the platform along with our back-end infrastructure to try and ramp up the number of apps that publishers, bloggers, et cetera, can have.
Andy Warhol would be proud.
That's our hope.
But it does sound like this is sort of, you're seeing the app world right now as like the 90s, when just a few people who really know how to do the code can go out there and do their thing. I mean, there are some sort of push-button publishing solutions, but they're not quite push-button. You still have to be a developer and that sort of thing. But it seems like Apple has taken somewhat of a dim view of people just, it's like, this is my app with my soundboard and I make weird noises and, what do you think about that? I mean, do you think there would be too much noise on the App Store if everyone had an app?
Well, that's a very good question. I think we'll have to see how some of that plays out. I think it's inevitable as part of the issue. It's not so much, and I certainly agree with Apple's desire to have the highest quality, apps on the store as possible, but we're not necessarily talking about, pointless apps. These are mostly apps that are developed for publishers, for people that today might have a blog, even businesses. Anybody with an RSS feed, basically. We can take RSS feeds and turn them into an app in a matter of minutes, kind of as you're describing. And I think your analogy is absolutely spot on in the sense that, think back to the early days of the web, right? If you wanted to add a shopping cart to your website on day one of the web in '94, whenever this was, it was, 12 people, 12 months, $1 million. Today, it's like, if you're not careful when you're buying a domain name for $2, you end up with a shopping cart on your site. So ultimately, I think that's the same kind of thing that's going to happen. And yeah, we don't want to encourage a proliferation of pointless or junky apps. But think about all of the different publications out there beyond what we know about, beyond the stuff you see in retail. There's trade publications, there's newsletters, there's all sorts of different things that would benefit from having an app. But it's just right now still too cost prohibitive or otherwise too difficult for people to do that.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I mean, considering the fact that there's still a lot of businesses out there that are just getting websites up.
Exactly, right. I mean, if we think back, it's like we wouldn't have imagined that everybody would have a .com 20 years ago,
Absolutely.
right? And so I think the same thing is like people say, oh, well, everybody's going to have an app. Are you right about that? Are you sure? What have you? And it's like we're making a big bet on this because we think that this is the evolution that's taking place.
Well, that makes sense. So as to the keynote the other day, what were your thoughts on that? I mean, a lot of really big stuff happened.
Yeah, well, the key thing for me, this is like Christmas time, right? We come here every year and just always happy to get the new presents. So there's an element of just that's wonderful. But it's obvious that they're re-upping the game, as it were, in terms of their focus on innovation on both the desktop, on mobile, and now, of course, moving into cloud services. And so as a mobile cloud provider, we're thrilled, right? This is continued reaffirmation of what we've been doing now for a couple years. And then, of course, the other thing we heard was that with 100 billion notifications having been pushed out there, we've actually shipped 2% of those.
Wow.
So
yeah, that's
so we loved it.
Is there anything from the announcements, of course nothing under NDA, but anything from the announcements that are publicly available that you guys see tapping into?
Well, the element of just sort of reaffirming the platform, right? So there's an element of, I think, driving more people onto the platform still, bringing people into iOS. That's just going to be, we absolutely believe in that. So I don't know that I want to speak to anything specific about it. Certainly some of the features are more exciting to me personally than others, but just the general trend of continuing to get people onto iOS, I think, is what we're very excited about.
Yeah. Do you think everyone's going to have their own Mac apps as well?
That's a good question. I think it has to do with whether and what is this post-PC era going to be like.
Yeah.
We're certainly, I'd be fine with that. And having done Mac development for 10 or 20 years before this, I think it's a great thing that the platform is so vibrant. But I don't know that I think that there's a lot of things that people will want to do with mobile that they wouldn't necessarily want to create a desktop app for.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And in fact, one could say that, and I've said this, that mobile seems to be almost a subset of what you do on the web, and I think that that's perhaps the success of some apps versus a website, is that you don't have as many choices. If you go to Orbitz, you've got like, what, 20, 30 buttons you can click on their main page. If you go to the Orbitz app, there's only like 5.
Right, exactly. We were actually talking about this just a little while ago. Think about Facebook, right? On your mobile device, you could easily, especially on an iPhone, you can load Facebook.com. But how many people do that versus using the app, even though the app has a reduced subset of the functionality that's available on the website? And it comes down to convenience, simplicity, the speed, the user experience. All of those, I think, are reasons why people will continue to have apps versus necessarily just focusing on the web.
Yeah, and all the things that Apple has been pushing for app developers to do. So don't make an overly complicated app.
Right.
Make something that's very simple and easy to understand.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
anything else that you guys are looking at going forward, or anything from WWDC that you'd like to talk about?
Well, a lot of the stuff we can't talk about, unfortunately, but it's just wonderful. Like I said, I'm thrilled to be here every single year. It's great to see all the people in the community. This is a growing community. This is a wonderful group of people to be with. Everybody's really excited about the platform and what's going on, and we just, it's wonderful, right? I mean, what's not to love about it? So
that's true.
Yeah. And otherwise, I'd just like to encourage anybody who doesn't have an app to come check us out at push.io and/or to check out the TapLinks framework directly at taplinks.com.
Cool. All right, Joe. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
I'm Victor Agreda Jr. with the Unofficial Apple Weblog here at WWDC 2011 with MacTech Magazine, and we're doing these interviews. Stay tuned for more.